I think we're all set up.
Let's do it.
You ready to go?
Let's go.
All right, guys. Welcome back, everybody, to the Silver Bullet Podcast. Colton and James here with you today. And we are going to go through some Q&A.
These are our favorite.
Yeah, I like them. I think they're kind of off the cuff most of the time. Today we are a little bit more point specific on topic because we are going to talk about these questions all came after our Strength Camp episode.
Right.
Some of these questions were sent in. Some of them were brought up to us during PT sessions, class sessions with clients that we have. So we're kind of just playing around with questions that came from that podcast.
Right.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So anything around questions around getting strong, we're game for.
Let's do it.
Ready? All right. So
I
guess, the biggest thing, and I got some of these on sticky notes. I got some on my computer. I'm just a mess here. Not very organized at all today.
But we know how to use our mics.
Yeah. So we won't even go into that. Anywho, so I think a lot of people, especially since we put a lot of emphasis on Strength Camp being a time period of the year that everybody needs. I don't care what you do. Everybody needs to take time to focus on becoming strong. And then knowing that there are the same benefits, call them fortunate consequences, if you will, that everybody's already searching for. Becoming, having fat loss, sleeping better, feeling legitimately healthier just by lifting heavy weight.
Right.
So that brings about questions. Okay, how do I maximize the opportunity, maximize those 12 weeks or those 24 weeks where that is all I'm focusing on? Okay,
Right.
So that's where a lot of this comes from. And yeah, like I said, some of them came from members of ours. Most of them did actually. But if they're asking the questions, it's pertinent to anybody that could be listening to this. 100%, right? So the very first one is going to be circled around hydration. Okay. Anytime it does get hot, I always start talking about hydration, but the problem is that conversation should be had way before that. Hydration during Strength Camp is a question. What is the optimal amount of fluid intake we should be having? What are some other key features of hydration that we should be concerned with that will often dictate how our body performs?
Right.
And how do we make sure that depending on the day and the amount of water loss that we have, that we replenish it?
Yeah.
A lot of kind of like a tri-pointed question there. So anything in and around there you want to start with that comes up?
I think the most simplistic way to go about it, if you feel like if you're starting to have a thirst pang, P-A-N-G, more than likely you're already dehydrated. You should just be constantly flushing the body with H2O, with water, just drinking it consistently throughout the day. Once you feel thirsty, you're past the point, and that workout is probably you're not going to be able to perform the way that you want. And definitely, I'm sure you'll touch on this if electrolytes are out of balance or just completely not at the levels that they need to be prior to that training, and definitely post training as well. So. Yeah, water, I mean, it to us, it should be like a non-negotiable or something that just you don't consider. You should just do it. But for the bulk audience either listening or individuals we just have taken through, this programming in the past, it's often overlooked, how powerful and profound just having the right amounts of hydration will be. Yeah,
100%. Because, like James said, the more that you are consistently flushing your body, the better your body has its natural ability to detox. Okay, right. And detoxing is something that happens in the body. I think we had a podcast not too long about that. Doesn't come in the form of a shake. Your body does it. And you always want it to be doing that, but it comes from having enough fluids in your system to make sure that is feasible. Now, you mentioned electrolytes, and electrolytes are the ones that we always hear whenever we talk about dehydration. Okay, well, your electrolytes are off. What does that mean? Well, I think first it helps to know what the electrolytes are, right? I think if you ask anybody what the electrolytes are, they probably wouldn't be able to name all of them. But sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, and magnesium. Okay, those are your electrolytes that you need to have in quote unquote balance as much as possible. Okay, now for most people, when you are dehydrated, you really lose a lot of sodium. Okay. We naturally don't consume very much potassium. We naturally don't consume very much magnesium. Due to everybody's gut health, calcium also goes down. And chloride is definitely one that comes in the form of salt. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there are, based on the way that we eat, as well as the way that we drink, kind of determines our electrolyte balance.
Right.
Okay. If you eat well, you're going to be fairly balanced. You're going to have a reason to hold on to a lot of these electrolytes and make sure that they don't kind of disappear on you during an intense workout. But you eat poorly, you tend to hold on to extra sodium. Okay. You don't never want to have too much in your system. Overall, makes you hold on to more water. I'm not sure of a negative issue of holding on to too much potassium, but I don't think a whole lot of us do based on what we consume. Do you?
I don't think so, no.
Calcium and magnesium both. Like we naturally don't consume them in their natural forms very often. You literally have to supplement with these things to really overdose with them, which is why they are some of the most popular supplements on the market.
Right.
Because naturally, from a holistic standpoint, we just don't consume them.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So that can be used to your advantage, okay? I don't think you need a sodium supplement, though,
yeah.
Okay?
Salt block.
You got it, right? Salt's not a bad thing. And this is the thing that people get really weird on me with is they're like, well, I'm trying to avoid salt. And I'm like, okay. Do you sweat at all?
Yeah.
Do you hold on to water? Do you have hydration issues? And they're like, well, I've just always thought that I shouldn't consume salt. Like, salt is an electrolyte. Like, you need that.
For sure.
It's really good from a electrical field standpoint, from a cellular communication. Like, you need that to happen. Got to have salt. Magnesium is the one that most people drastically underconsume.
Right.
Followed by potassium, then calcium, chloride, sodium, I think in that order. So you can always look to supplement with these things.
Yeah. Do you think it would be easier for an individual to take something that is like already well-rounded in all of those?
Yeah. Like trace mineral oils.
Right.
Trace mineral drops.
Right.
So you can find these and you don't have to supplement individually, but there's a lot of people that get a lot of different scans and testing done where they find out that electrolyte area is way off kilter, and then you can individually supplement that way.
I'm thinking of a funny story. The concentrates, it's a drop we've recommended in the past, and that's what it is. It's an electrolyte supplement. If you get the concentrated version, don't take that bottle and drop it on your tongue. It is meant to be diluted into water. Not a good idea.
It tastes like battery acid.
It burns.
Yeah. So anyways, electrolytes and hydration, very key. You want your body to have all the components needed to work as efficiently and functionally as possible. Electrolytes hold a very big weight in that.
For sure.
So you got to make sure that you are consistently drinking. Now, one of the main questions was how much water should you consume on a given day? I really do. It does vary for people. I
think individuals get so tired of that answer, but it is the answer that we have to put out there. It just depends on you.
I can't tell somebody who's 110 pounds to drink 160 to 180 ounces of water.
Right.
They will become what do they call that?
Big mush puddle.
You become so diluted that you actually can have mental fogginess and clarity issues, and you become water drunk. Essentially, is what it is. It's water intoxication, is what it is.
Yeah.
That can happen. So I'm going to do a trial here because I really just want to see how this works. I have Google pulled up. How many ounces of water should you drink in a day? Look at there. It pops up just like that.
8 glasses.
And we're going to talk about this, and we're going to kind of figure out why. Get off my images here. Institute of Medicine. 101 ounces of water a day for men. Women should drink at least 74 ounces. A little over 9 cups. Okay? I don't think that's too incredibly inaccurate by any means.
No,
usually whenever I'm suggesting water amount to people in the form of ounces, I'm trying to get men somewhere around 120 and ladies somewhere around 100.
Right.
And here's why. I use more reverse psychology than a lot of people would care to acknowledge because I know if I give you a number, you're going to come short of that. But if you come short of 20 ounces, you're probably right in the wheelhouse where I want you.
Right.
So I always say 120 to 100 is a good area to shoot for. And you should be drinking that every day. Like I said, you should be flushing stuff out. Our bladder only holds like 11 to 12 ounces of fluid. You guys do the math. If you're consuming 120 to 100 ounces, like, yes, you are going to absorb some of that water as intended, but you should be peeing 5, 6, 8 times a day.
Right. Well, and it's just from a health standpoint,
Exactly.
keep those things moving. If you're just going to the bathroom, both ends once a day, that ain't good.
No, not super ideal at all. Okay, so there was hydration. There's our question on hydration. That's definitely a good question because it'll come up for sure with more people in the future. I had a good question on breathing and bracing for specifically lifting weights. Now, this is a little bit more broad, because regardless of what style of training you're doing, you should be able to breathe and brace properly. Mm-hmm. But it seems like when we do strength camp, we put more emphasis on lifting heavy weights or lifting for strength sets, should I say. It's not heavy all the time. We can put more emphasis on breathing, on bracing, and how we're able to use that to our advantage. So when you are sitting down talking with somebody or you're coaching somebody in a session or whatnot, and you really need to concentrate on breathing and bracing, where do you start and why is it important?
So breathing, I just want them to understand how to use the body in the proper way, especially their diaphragm. Too many of us, due to sitting all day, poor posture, depression, whatever it may be, we become like very shallow and chest breathers. Where that's the first thing you see rise. Where we should be like look at a toddler. Their belly protrudes. They take just big, full, deep breaths, and like that whole thing just expands up. So a way you can kind of measure that, like lay on the floor on your stomach, it's called crocodile breathing. And if you feel just the chest and nothing in the stomach, like you got a breathing issue. Mm-hmm. And that's something to definitely work on and to practice at home. So breathing is important. But if you can't breathe correctly, if there's some dysfunction there, we have to address that first.
That's importanter.
Yeah, it is the most importanter.
Exactly.
The bracing, and I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit about a belt. If you can't establish that first, when we go into bracing, if you can't fill that up, the diaphragm, and create that intra-abdominal pressure, now you're not going to execute a very quality lift, in my opinion. And as percentages or weight goes up, and if you don't brace properly because you can't breathe properly, you're probably going to have some lower back, some core issues or whatever. It's not the lift. I gotta get that out there.
Yep.
It's the malfunction of executing the small things properly. And once you've established that, and once you can do it, by all means, load up more weight, test the body. A lifting belt is only a beneficial tool if you know how to brace against it in the right way. If you throw that thing on when you're using 95 pounds and you cinch it down as hard as it'll go, you're putting your body at a disadvantage long term.
Yeah, and the belt was definitely going to be something that came up after the fact. Bracing is your safety key. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you don't know how to brace, you're not shielding your body from potential hazards within the movement. Okay, and just potential hazard doesn't mean that the movement is unsafe. It's that your body will always try to find that path of least resistance to apply or let pressure escape.
Yep.
Okay, and oftentimes when you're talking about like deadlifting, like pressure escapes through vertebral discs, you know what I mean? It's an easy way, like mild discs and slip disc are the most common thing that happen with lumbar rounding, okay, or lumbar flexion as they call it, particular to deadlift. Same thing with back squats or anything like that where you're picking anything off the ground. That is caused by either poor core bracing, pelvic floor bracing, or extremely poor mobility with heavy weight. Mm-hmm. But it's more the first two ones. Yep. Core strength, core activation, core bracing, rather than the latter. Now, the reason why I think this is a good question to be brought up is because there are people who are apprehensive in our own facility about doing strength camp. Right. And whether they've done it or not, it's just the thought of dedicating time to only lifting heavy, that can freak some people out, and that's 100% okay. Here is your key to being safe this entire time. So if you're somebody out there that's never done a full-fledged strength program, mm-hmm. that was only concentrating on you getting strong for a select period of time, here's the best thing you can do. Learn how to breathe, learn how to brace.
Yep.
So you talked about the diaphragmatic breathing is very good at getting you out of your fight or flight system. Okay. And you need that a lot, especially when you're talking about recovery. Okay. Yes, we're talking about breathing during a workout, but breathing outside of a workout, they should be two different things. If you realize you're breathing the exact same way when you're in the gym versus when you're out of the gym, you got a problem.
Right.
You have to be able to separate the two.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a drill for everybody to do when they go home. When you lay down in bed at night, okay, close your eyes, make sure the room's nice and dark. Do 50 belly breaths with an 8 count. 8 count in, 8 count out, where you're only breathing through your nose and you're trying to fill up your belly full of air for 8 seconds and then out for 8 seconds.
Right.
I guarantee you you'll fall asleep before you get to 50. This is the power of diaphragmatic breathing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you're in the gym, okay, we are in our fight or flight system when we need to be.
Hopefully.
Breathing is good. You should always make breathing an easy thing. So like when you're doing kettlebell swings, when should you be taking your breath? You should be taking your breath on the way down, right? Exhaling on the way up. Okay, you're filling air into your diaphragm when it's under the least resistance. That's going to be the best. That's why you take a breath at the top of the lift, not when you're down in the bottom under all the pressure, under the tension. And when you learn how to take that diaphragmatic breath, then and only then do you know how to brace.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
That's why we put so much emphasis on the diaphragmatic breathing at the beginning, because if you can't diaphragmatic breathe, you cannot brace. And if you cannot brace, you leave yourself susceptible to injury. Okay. So the bracing aspect, whenever I teach somebody how to brace, the first thing I tell them to do is take a deep belly breath. Okay. And when they have that air down there, I literally take my fingers and I poke them in the side of the belly and try to touch their spine. I'm like, okay, now push my hands out of your belly, and they create that intra-abdominal pressure. And all of a sudden, like you're filling up a propane tank in your belly, it gets hard. That is your intra-abdominal pressure playing a pivotal role in your pelvic stability.
For sure.
Okay, it's going nowhere.
Right.
Okay, and if you were able to maintain that through the duration of a lift, specifically deadlift, back squat, anything that you're doing that is compression loading on the spine, you're going to be 100% safe. Now, where the belt comes in, there's a lot of, and we've talked about this on podcasts before, there's a lot of misconceptions about belts. Okay, most people are like, don't feel like I have it today, back's a little sore, I'm just going to tighten the belt up a little bit more.
Ratchet that bad boy down.
That's right. So if you think about why they're ratcheting it down so much, they tighten it up to where they literally can't breathe. The tighter it is, the more intra-abdominal pressure you can create, right? Quote unquote, I'm using air quotes. If you can't create that diaphragmatic breath down in your stomach and push out against the belt is essentially worthless. Okay. Now it's just a fancy leather garment that you're wearing and you look silly deadlifting. So it is not a fail-safe tool. It is a tool meant for performance and at very specific times.
Well, I think a belt should be put on. It should be a little loose.
Well, I always tell people when you put it on, I should be able to take 3 fingers and stick it between your skin and the belt at all times. And if you can't do that, you got to wait too tight.
If that thing is if it's already tight as soon as you're first notch or whatever, or you're just getting it down before you've even created that ability to brace, you're not helping yourself for that lift whatsoever.
And so the downfall of that is, especially if you train in that capacity for a while, you have no reason for your core to become stronger.
Right.
Because now it's over reliant on this tool that is supposed to provide that intra-abdominal pressure.
For sure.
When you can't do it.
Right.
Okay. So the longer you do it, the more problem you have. We had a lady in here, she's still here, who used to deadlift all the time. Doesn't matter what she was doing, what weight she was doing.
Barbell.
The belt went on. And, it's kind of the question that we posed to her. I was like, do you want your core to get stronger? And she's, well, yeah. I said, take the belt off.
Right.
Learn how to deadlift without the belt, create that pressure, and then only use the belt around, or if you get above 85% of your lifts you're doing. And her lifts started skyrocketing.
Right.
It's kind of cool. But that's the reason why.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to add on breathing or bracing?
You hit on all the key things. I think if an individual really, really struggles with that, like I remember I went through a certification Strong First for kettlebell, and when we would teach hardstyle planks, I still think that's a phenomenal way to understand how to create that tension into brace. So an individual, if they can create that diaphragmatic process,
explain the hardstyle planks,
and then brace. So when you get in a plank position, like you're not just occupying space on the floor. Like get in a plank position, like screw your elbows and your arm into the ground, and same thing with your feet. But a lot of individuals, their pelvis, like you were saying, we want to tilt that so things are all neutral, then set the core and the frame with that. And a coach should be able to come by and like nudge you in the leg or push you, and you should be locked in that position.
Rock solid.
If you can learn how to lift like that, you're going to be all right.
People think I pick on them when they're doing planks. I'm not picking on you. I'm just double checking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So breathing, bracing, really important. You should always take your deepest breath at the top of the lift, brace by pushing your belly out, then do the lift, and on the extension of the lift, you're going to be exhaling slightly. Okay, I didn't really talk about that aspect of it. You always want to exhale during your lift, because there is a little bit of consequence if you do not. Like say you hold on to your breath. Okay,
Passing out.
Yeah, there's something called your vagus nerve. Okay, your vagus nerve is essentially what determines when your heart rate should go up, your blood pressure should go up. You should have vasodilation. You should essentially freak out. Okay. And when you hold your breath, that lack of oxygen exchange is usually a primary indicator that you're going to skyrocket. And that's when people we've never had anybody happen in here, but people pass out, right?
I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it.
I've seen a lot of them. Thanks, social media, or gym fails or whatever it's called. So I always tell people to leak air. Okay, you don't want to get rid of everything. So if you get rid of everything, you lose your intra-abdominal pressure. But you can leak air that is up into your chest. So I go to do a front squat. I take my deep belly breath. I brace. I go down, and as I'm coming up, I'm letting air out. Okay?
Yeah, you're probably like, why is that guy hissing over there? We're just doing things right.
That's what it is. And I'm fine with people making noises. They're exhaling.
Yeah.
That's how it works. You can almost always guarantee that you're not going to overstimulate that vagus nerve if you're making noise on the way up of a lift.
Right.
That doesn't give you permission to be obnoxious, but I understand.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. That was a good one there on the breathing. I had somebody ask me, primarily because they were an Olympic weightlifter, whether or not they should use lifters for strength camp. Okay, so the question comes from, first we need to talk about what a lifter is. You want to cover that?
Oh, man, this is your wheelhouse. You go with that.
So,
I'll put my opinion on it because I don't know if it's right.
That's okay. I think it is a little more opinionated. A lifter is essentially a flat-soled shoe that has an elevated heel. Okay, so the elevated heel is usually somewhere between a 3/4 or a 1/2 inch drop, which just means it's going to be raised by 3/4 of an inch. I think I've seen some that are up to 8/10 of an inch. But anyways, it's an elevated heel. It's a very flat shoe.
Yep.
It gives you ultimate superior stability while you are squatting or deadlifting. Okay, and the reason why you would take advantage of that is because it actually allows you to have better ankle mobility. It gives you 10 or 15 degrees of ankle range of motion that you don't have. And when you play from bottom to top and you look at an actual figure, that allows you to sit down lower on your squat. It allows you to sit your hips lower on your deadlift, and it allows you to use a lot more quads in your movements than your hamstrings. That's essentially what it becomes.
For sure.
A lot more anterior movement. Whenever you see somebody who's using lifters, just know that they're getting a lot more quads out of the movement that they're currently doing, unless their ankle mobility is non-existent, in which case maybe they're just back to normal. I don't know. I can think of a couple people.
They've reached homeostasis again.
So, anyways, it's a lifting shoe.
Yep.
Okay. So, now you give me your opinion on whether or not people should use it.
I think if the individual, and you touched on a lot of the points, if they already have decent mobility and it will help them increase specific lifts, I'm all for it. And I also think the more seasoned a lifter is, I think it can be advantageous to mix shoes up. So you're hitting different, like you said, maybe you need to go through a season where you need to target more quads, but if you're fairly mobile, maybe you need to pull off of that after a while and hit more hamstring. You're going to continue to build up just more overall strength in the specific movements. I can say when I back squat with minimalistic shoes versus lifters, the lift is very different. But I want to train it both ways. Me preferably, just so there are no gaps in that lift overall. So if you're wanting to compete in one specific thing like Olympic lifting, wear Olympic lifting shoes. If you're doing this because your ankle mobility sucks, work on your ankle mobility.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a much different answer, but I do like that. I think if you are specified within a certain discipline, by all means, use them. That's fine. But I'm going to give you a completely different answer and a different dynamic or a different way to look at it. If you have back pain from lifting, don't wear any shoes at all. You should go through strength camp without shoes on.
Right.
Because here's the thing.
You ain't got no glutes, baby.
And here's the thing. Yeah. So the elevated heel, like I said, a lot more anterior muscles. So your quads, hip flexors are getting a lot more work than your hamstrings and glutes.
Right.
Not entirely, but enough shaded that way that that's going to happen. If you're somebody with back pain, you already have an anterior problem more than likely. Your hip flexors are too tight, your quads are too tight, and consequently, your glutes and your hamstrings are too weak.
Right.
So by taking shoes off, one, it's going to force you to be a little bit more grounded by being barefoot, feeling out the dexterity of your toes, grabbing the floor, activating your glutes. Like, those things matter, and they make a difference.
Yeah.
You spend 12 weeks where you're doing a little bit more of a powerlifting squat, maybe a little bit more of a low bar squat. Maybe you're just doing box squats, okay? You spend more time deadlifting where your hips are just a little bit higher, but you're still maintaining a little bit more thoracic extension. You are screaming hamstrings and glutes over quads and hip flexors.
Yeah.
So that is my biggest thing. You have a back problem, you should be barefoot.
Right.
So that means, obviously, don't wear those elevated shoes.
Sure. Like that's good.
Or as minimal of a shoe as possible is what I would say. If you don't have any of those problems and there's a little bit of a benefit for you to use a lifter, by all means, I got no problem with that at all.
Yeah, if you've earned it and the tool then can help you go to the next level or whatever,
as a tool should.
We are all about it. But if you're only using the tool because other things lack, you need to work on the other things, build up the foundation.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely believe that the lifters are beneficial, but it's not necessarily needed for everybody. There's only a small percentage of people that have them here, but just because you're back squatting doesn't mean you have to go buy a pair of lifters. I don't think that way.
Well, and I like that you talked about the barefoot. I mean, we could probably teach an entire day of just individuals who lack just dexterity and movement in their foot and their toes, especially. Like, they're cramped up in shoes all the time. Just by getting more movement there, you're going to lift a lot more weight.
Feet are killing them every day. It's like, man, that's not normal.
Right.
I don't care how old you think you are. Anyways, okay, so we got two more questions, and they are really good questions that I want to make sure that we got on this episode here. One of them is going to be focused more towards warm-up and mobility aspects of a strength camp or a strength period, or the 12 weeks that you're focusing on only strength work. What should your mobility regimen look like? And here's the reason for this. There's a lot of speculation about when the best time to do mobility work is. Is it before a workout? Is it during a workout? Is it after a workout? And also, the other variable is, what kind of mobility are you doing? What kind of warm-up are you doing? And why is one beneficial than another compared to other times of the year where you might be doing a little bit more maintenance work?
Right.
So let's start with a warm-up, okay? And you're a good guy to ask for this question because you hate warming up, but you still do it.
Right.
And you are a predominant, just heavy power lifter. And, that's what we're going to be gearing into a little bit during strength camp. So, in your mind, what clicks and makes sense as far as a warm-up goes? What should happen?
Yeah. The heart rate has to get up. That doesn't mean everyone's going...
Hold on a second. Please stop. Dead silent? Say that again.
The heart rate must get up.
Okay. I wanted to make sure we put extra emphasis on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If you're not prepping the body, the central nervous system especially, and you're not elevating your core temperature, you are already at a disadvantage. I mean, and I think you've had good strength coaches. I know I've had good strength coaches in the past. I've
had bad strength coaches too.
Yes, but the one I'm definitely thinking about, I mean, he drilled that in my head. Like, you want to perform well in the facility, it doesn't matter how you came in here feeling, like, have a good warm up and it might change, So take your body through something that's actually going to raise the metabolic response, get the heart rate up. Aside from that, you would hopefully be doing movements that are going to transfer to the lifts that you're going to do in that day. If I'm on a deadlift, for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to, like, again, this is a hard question to answer. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on my chest and everything. I might need to if I'm super rounded off in the shoulders and weak in the upper back. So but train the body, like prep the body for the things that it's going to achieve in that specific workout. And then lastly, so when should you do your foam rolling, your static stretching and all of that? You can implement some static stretches in there to help the prime movers. Mm-hmm. But a lot of your stretching and mobility work, get it done post-training. Do the things that are going to help the body facilitate more recovery,
Yeah. And a lot of that was kind of what I was thinking as well. And I have some arguments for both sides of it. But as far as warm-up goes, I could care, and I know this sounds weird, but I could care less what you do for warm-up. Get your heart rate up.
Right.
What does that look like? It could be a jog around the parking lot. Mm-hmm. No offense to our members, they hate running. That's okay. Yeah. It's good for them.
It's a good skill to have.
It is. Jog around the parking lot. Oh, I do as well. It could be on a rowing machine, on a bike for 5 minutes. It could be, if you only have a treadmill, fine. Put it at an incline and get your heart rate up. Mm-hmm. You have to get your heart rate up. It could be 50 kettlebell swings. It could be anything that is going to get you breathing. And if you're breathing, your heart rate is climbing.
Right.
And if your heart rate is climbing, your body, your central nervous system is getting primed. It's ready for something. Is this what we are doing going to continue? If so, hold on. Let me get everything ready.
Right.
That's what's happening.
Yep.
Okay. Besides that, and once that has happened, that's when you get your prime movers ready. Okay. If we're going to back squat, I'm going to make sure your hips, everything from your hip down to your ankle is ready to roll.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw in a little bit of core work, a little bit of priming work, a little bit of pelvic floor work, maybe. It really does depend. If we're going to do a lot of bench press today, I'm going to make sure that your thoracic area is nice and mobile. You have a lot of rotational drills. You have some rotator cuff stuff to do some priming work, things of that nature. But even though I'm not going to do a ton of deadlifts and I'm going to do a military strict press for my warm-up, I'm still getting my heart rate up.
Yep.
And that's probably the most important thing you can do for warm-up.
Yeah.
Is get your heart rate up. Sweat a little bit.
You're
if you're not shedding layers, you're doing something wrong.
It's a very systematic process, and we're training the body. Look, if this is what you've done in the past or it's what you enjoy doing now, there's nothing wrong with walking into the facility gym and cranking out some arm stuff. But to just knock out some bis and tries, you don't necessarily need to do the most intense warm-up. You still need to get the heart rate up. But what we're taking you through, we want to avoid injury. Got to get the heart rate up, got to get the body prepped.
I want you to be able to do this tomorrow.
Right.
I want you to be able to do it next week.
And I think a good test, every person, I would hope, if your air squat looks terrible, your back squat's not going to look great. If your hip hinge with just like a broomstick or a PVC pipe or whatever looks terrible, your deadlift technique probably going to suffer. If your push-up position looks terrible, you're probably not going to be the best at bench pressing. Now, a lot of individuals, their technique will get better with weight. They mask it with the lack of, their increasing stability. But if you can't do the basic body weight things with perfection, you're not going to excel well in strength camp.
No, yeah, it'll be very difficult. But that shouldn't deter you from trying by any means. There is always something that you should be working on. Now, the biggest thing with strength camp, especially if you are going to get into heavyweight, is to make sure you spill stuff all over.
I did, man.
The biggest thing to make sure is that if you are going to get up into heavyweight, is that you do it safely. Okay, so there are some things that I'm like, okay, we really need to work on this, but it's not going to be catastrophic if it doesn't improve by tomorrow.
Right.
Whereas this thing here, if you put 90% on, I need you to sign this waiver because I told you that it's a bad idea. Type thing, okay?
Yeah.
So, anywho, the warm up needs to promote your heart rate getting up. Moving on to the mobility aspect. This one has a lot of. It depends what you believe.
Okay? Well, the problem with this is just, most of the research, or a lot of it, they do it with, your 1% population. You're super competitive. Like, look, that's not who we're dealing with here. I'm glad that works for you guys. Great.
Yeah.
Look, I'm just trying to help Susie over here.
Yeah. So the foam rolling stuff. A lot of people look at it as beneficial pre-warm-up just to get blood flowing into muscles, literally rolling, up and down muscle units, which is completely opposite of what the foam roller was designed for, but whatever.
Right.
using it in not its designed or intended fashion to actually get blood flowing to muscle groups. Good pre-workout. But even better, use post-workout for its designed purpose.
Definitely.
Literally finding muscle tissue, sitting and concentrating on it, letting it melt.
Aggravated a little bit.
Yeah, it's just you're priming yourself up for a better recovery that way. Static stretching is the same thing. Okay, static stretching can be really good. Yeah, like you said, you might statically stretch some prime movers. Like if your hips are really tight, like stretch those puppies out, get some blood flowing, then stretch them out before you squat. Like you don't want to be squatting with a bunch of tightness or locked up hip flexors. But even better after a big squat workout. Even better right before you go home. Even better in the middle of the day, nowhere around your workout window. Like that's when static stretching, like literally just sitting and stretching, works without an implement or a tool. What I would not do is do a full stretching ritual right before a workout. Okay. We utilize ROMWAD. Love it to death. I think it's beneficial for everybody to do. If I'm going into strength camp, I'm not doing that before a workout.
No.
I'm doing it after. Or I'm doing it a day completely off of when I lift. And the reason being is more for elasticity or elastic properties of your muscles. If you spend 4 minutes in a pose, you've pulled essentially all the elasticity out of that muscle that can generate power, velocity, strength, all that stuff. That's not necessarily a bad thing for some people. But for me, I'm definitely not going to do it because I want the elasticity on my side when it's time to move heavy weight. Okay. If you've ever done a long ROMWAD session and then lifted right afterwards, you feel slow. Like that's just how stretching works. And it's a good thing if you time it up right. But I would be more inclined to do it after a workout than before a workout. Would you agree?
Definitely. 100%.
All right. Anything else you want to add to that one? Because we're going to wrap it up with one more question.
Should we get some infrared sauna to help in the warm-up process?
100%. Yes, I love infrared sauna. Maybe we'll get one of those. Maybe we'll get one of those one day. Okay. We'll leave that at that. The last question that I had, it always comes up this time of year, and for good reason. You know, when you change somebody's mind, like I said at the very beginning of the podcast, when you change from trying to just focus on losing weight or losing body fat, whatever, and you focus on a different property, you want to know all the tips and tools to help you achieve that one. So supplements designed and specified for gaining strength. Okay. What are they? How do we utilize them? And which ones should we or shouldn't we be taking each and every day? What do you think?
First of all, creatine. Well, D3.
Vitamin D.
And this time of year, you should be getting outside as much as possible. Vitamin D, like D3, is a precursor. Oh my gosh, cannot talk. Precursor to just hormone function. So when it is low, like let's just use us as an example. I don't want my testosterone to be low before I'm trying to lift some heavy-ish weight. All right.
And vitamin D is directly correlated with testosterone production.
Well, it's just all hormone. Just like overall regulation and balance. If your D3 is low, you're just going to have more than likely hormonal dysregulation. Then the other couple, creatine for sure. I don't have anything in front of me. You might, but I know for a fact, and I could show you 20 different articles where it is the most researched probably supplement known to man and how it will aid in the ability with work to gain strength and lean mass. And then lastly, omega-3s help the body just reduce inflammation. The better you can recover, the better you're going to go into a workout, feel better. That's a big mental boost to be able to lift more weight.
Okay, so I'm definitely going to agree with all of those. I'm going to give you a couple different ones, but going back to the creatine, creatine is the most researched supplement out there, and it is super beneficial, both male and female. I think there are reasons why you should take it. I also think there are reasons why some people shouldn't take it. If you're unhealthy,
He's being he's on it today.
And you know, if you're not healthy, if you don't eat well, if you don't sleep well, if you're not regular with your exercise, the last thing you should be consuming is creatine.
Right. Especially if you're drinking a lot of alcohol.
Exactly. Like, you don't need to give your kidneys another thing to have to filter and deal with.
Yeah. Or if you take any, like, yes, that's a great point. Some prescription medications, like, definitely don't want to be taking creatine in conjunction with that. So do your due diligence. If you take things like that, don't add something.
Yeah, I think that's why creatine gets a terrible rap.
Right.
Okay, and honestly, the reason why creatine gets a terrible rap is because way few years ago, I don't know how long a few is, 10, 12, maybe 20 years ago, there were some soccer players that essentially collapsed on the field, died of kidney failure, essentially, opened their kidneys up and literally had creatine crystals formed in there. And come to find out that they had taken a ton of creatine the day before. Well, they were also severely dehydrated. They were also having they were college kids that like to party.
Right.
They were not healthy.
Many strikes were against them.
Yeah, it was not a great thing, but it kind of lumped creatine into this bad rap area where even doctors and other people are like, you shouldn't take it. It's bad for your kidneys. If you eat red meat, you're consuming creatine. Right. I don't quite get that. Of course, doctors are also telling you not to eat red meat either, so whatever. Anyway, so
they're probably not coming to strength camp either.
They're probably not coming to strength camp. Nope, they're putting donuts in their parking lot.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Inside joke. Okay, so creatine definitely one on there. I think it is usable for a lot of people, especially if you're healthy, especially if you are going to take this very seriously and you want to get the best advantage out of it. Creatine can help. No more than 5 grams a day. They're usually unflavored things. You can take them at any time you want. It's not one of those things like a pre-workout that you're going to feel it.
Right.
But it does help prevent muscle fatigue. It does boost your endurance quite a bit, and it does promote a lot of good muscle recovery.
Right.
My two that I'm going to go with that are different than yours, though, one's going to be a whey protein shake. Mm-hmm. I think that if you're trying to really put emphasis on recovery, especially as you're talking about muscle tissue and strength and how they work together, you need to be consuming enough protein each day.
Yeah.
Okay. You just have to. Whey protein is always my choice. If you want to take a vegan approach to it or something that's not dairy product, you can always look at a vegan protein that is more of a pea protein, probably. Mm-hmm. You can find egg white proteins. There are a lot of different protein sources out there that could be beneficial for you. But the general rule of thumb is men somewhere around 1 gram per pound of body weight, and ladies somewhere around 0.8 to 0.9 grams per pound of body weight. If you're consuming that every day, you're really going to excel at strength camp.
Right.
You're also probably going to lose a lot of body fat too.
Yeah.
Hint, hint. And then the last one, I think you should lump that trace mineral into the supplement category.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I think people would be really surprised what would happen if they had quality electrolytes each and every day, especially as they were coming into train, and what that could do for you. Trace mineral is the one that we use, the one that I like. I recommend quite a bit as well. You put the drops basically in whatever drink that you want.
Yep.
It tastes salty, but it is, like you said, meant to be diluted. It's not like a pre-workout. You just throw it in your tongue and go. But I think people would be really surprised day in and day out if they were taking a trace mineral supplement at what happens from a cellular level that they will physically notice.
Sure.
Especially when it comes to strength camp. So that would be my supplement choices. Stick with the creatine if you can, if you want. We put an amount on there. You don't have to worry about loading, preloading, or deloading. Whey protein shake or a protein shake in general. Be very cautious if you are buying protein shakes. A protein shake has a 2-to-1 ratio of protein and carbs. If it's the opposite, if it's in reverse, that's a recovery shake. That's not a protein shake.
Right.
Know that while you're buying things. And then definitely the trace mineral.
Yep.
And then you said omegas, D3,
yep.
and
we were on creatine.
Yeah. That's right. So nothing really out of the ordinary for what you should be consuming anyways, but a little bit more emphasis on the creatine aspect, a little bit more emphasis on the trace minerals. Like everything else, you should be consuming every day.
Sure.
Your magnesium, you should be consuming D3 every day. If you're not, shame on you. It hasn't been sunny at all last week.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So take that stuff with a grain of salt. You still have to have a clean diet. You still need to sleep well. You still need to have your social, emotional, and physical stress under wraps. Like all of those things need some good attention. You don't have to have it fully in control.
Yeah.
But you know when you don't have something under wraps.
Right.
And just know that all these supplements aren't going to fix anything. If anything, they might make it worse.
Well, that was the thing I was going to mention. And I'm playing, worst case scenario here. But if you, unfortunately, are the person who maybe you've fallen into this trap, like you have one really, really good workout every like 15 days because the day before you actually slept well and went to bed on time, and maybe life's going like the way that you wanted at work and with relationships, and you took 3 scoops of your pre-workout. You're not building up, like Colton already mentioned, the wherewithal to just have that consistency.
You're towing a very, very, very thin line.
Right.
You're flirting with disaster.
Like everything can't just like, man, today's workout was great. Well, what was so good about it? And then you're like, well, I had half the bottle of pre-workout. I slept well last night, and life's just good.
People take the scoop of pre-workout out. No, they just dump water in the bucket. Yeah. So obviously, do your due diligence of taking care of yourself before you can consider a lot of these supplement advice. Because there's a reason in our nerds thing that supplements last. It is the least important. It's there to fill in the gaps because we're not perfect people.
No.
But it's not there to fix your mistakes.
Right.
It's there to fill the gaps, not fix the mistakes. Anything else you want to add to this one?
I think that's it.
I've already gone longer than I thought we would, and that's pretty par for the course, but not too bad. I thought it was pretty good. I thought we covered the questions that we had. Guys, if you are out there in podcast land, you're considering doing a strength camp, and you have questions on it, how you should go about it, reach out to us.
We can program strength camp for you.
And we can program strength camp for you. info@reclaim3.com. We'd love to talk with you. Thanks for tuning in with us. Appreciate you guys. Any last things you want to add to this one?
Let's wrap it up.
We'll catch you in 2 more weeks, guys. This is the Silver Bolt Podcast.